Hey, what's up, everybody? I want to welcome you to another episode of the Dreamerspro Daily Recap, where we give you a recap of all of the hot topics that we covered that day. You can catch them in their long format and also catch it fully streaming for free on Apple Podcasts. It has gotten to the point where now Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese are always making the news, right? It is just that with the Chicago Sky and the Indiana Fever. Whenever they played, there's usually some coverage that comes after that. So recently they faced each other. In a pretty contested game, and there was a particular play that Caitlin Clark was like a dribble handoff. I think she came off of a screen. I think she hesitated and was making her way to the basket. And on her way to the rim, she was contested, and then Angel Reese came over for what looked like a block, but instead of hitting the ball, she ended up hitting the side of her head, and then she was issued a flagrant foul. So after that play, a lot of people started talking about it. A lot of news publications started writing about it. And as a matter of fact, they spoke about it all throughout sports media today on the major platforms. But after the game, they caught up with Angel Reese in the post-game interview, and they asked her about that particular play, and she had some pretty interesting statements about the officiating in the game. So what we want to do now is want to play some of the things that Angel Reese had to say. It's very, very short, about 30 seconds or so. So I want you guys to take a listen to what she had to say here, and then we're going to come back and get into some more information for you guys. Take a listen to that there.
For inside, I think we were playing really hard. I think we went up really strong a lot of times, and we didn't get a lot of calls. And going back and looking at the film, I've seen a lot of calls that weren't made. I guess some people got a special whistle, but just being able to play hard as best as we can. I'm still proud of Camilla going on, still getting a double-double. And that's something y'all not going to be able to stop regardless of the referees. Like, we're here for a while. We're not going to be denied, no matter what you guys can try to do. But our goal is to win, and we're going to do whatever it takes to win and continue to do that.
So you heard what she had to say. Now, before producing this show, I actually had to go back multiple times to watch that play again, and also listen to some people who've been covering the WNBA for some time, who basically said that, look, the WNBA is traditionally a very physical league, and their words were able to give it some context. But I want to read from an article here from a website I never read from before. It's from foxnews.com, and it has the following headline: Angel Reese defends hitting Caitlin Clark in the head, resulting in flagrant foul. It's a basketball play. Continues on. The Chicago Sky and Indiana Fever rematch was a highly anticipated game Sunday afternoon, with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese pitted against each other in another chapter of their WNBA journey. And things got a bit testy when Reese whacked Clark in the head on a block attempt in the third quarter of the Fever's 91-83 victory, resulting in a flagrant foul. Reese was asked about the flagrant foul by a reporter after the game, and she cut him off quickly. As she said, a basketball play. It was a basketball play, Reese said. I can't control the refs. They affected the game obviously a lot tonight. Reese was adamant officials were not calling the same game on both ends of the floor. The Sky were called for 21 personal fouls as a team, while the Fever were whistled for 17. Reese and fellow rookie Camilla Cardoso each had 5 fouls. And then continues on. It says, I think we went up really strong a lot of times, and we didn't get a lot of foul calls, Reese explained when asked about her and Cardoso's performance. Going back and looking at the film, I've seen a lot of calls that weren't made. I guess some people get a special whistle, but just being able to play hard as best as we can. And then some other things were said in that article. So you heard what the article had to say. I like the wording that they used, that she would hit in the head. I understand it. Anyway, what are my thoughts on all of this? A play like that, if you pull it off in the NBA today, you're going to be called for flagrant foul. Anything above the anything above the neck area, shoulders, you're going to get called for flagrant foul, because they're trying to take that out of the game. So given the fact that they called it a flagrant foul in WNBA or in the NBA, I think it's standardized. It happens. I think that's just going to be the rule of thumb to protect the players. I looked at the play. Do I think it was intentional? No. I think she made a hard, contest, and she wanted to block the shot. I think that if Angel had been able to get to the ball, I think it's one of those emphatic blocks that you pull off, where you're trying to send a message to the opponents. Like, don't come in here with that weak, what we see it all the time in the NBA. Now, obviously, these two figures are going to be pitted against each other, just given their history, and also given what they mean to the WNBA and the number of eyeballs that they bring to the league. To me personally, I think the person who wins at the end, or the entity that wins at the end, is the WNBA. Because once again, we're talking about the WNBA. It is bringing more attention, more eyeballs, and ultimately they benefit overall, right? But it was interesting, however, to hear people that have been covering the league say, no, look, it's a very, very physical league, and plays like this occur all the time, and it's no big deal, no big issues. To me, I think ultimately it was a basketball play. Now, of course, Angel Reese voiced her opinions. She was upset at She was upset at the way the game was called, calling out the referees. I saw a creator. I've seen him before. I don't remember his name. I think he did a tacky job with his title. I can't remember. I can't find the guy's name. I can't find his name right now, but he's a pretty big creator. He has about 800,000. He has about 800. Okay, I found him. Black conservative perspective. Listen, I have nothing against conservatives. I have nothing against liberals. This is not that type of show. At least today, that's not what we're doing. I'm not here to attack them, but I think that the title of his video was completely inappropriate, and it misrepresented what took place. He said Angel Reese lashes out in victimhood after brutally clotheslining Caitlin Clark during last law. That's a ridiculous way to word that title. It's a ridiculous way. He said about victimhood. Bro, first of all, we're talking basketball, number one. Number two, players complain about calls all the time. Luka Doncic was just maligned for his constant complaining to referees. Is that victimhood? No. Players do it. I've heard Lebron could get on referees. I've heard Kobe in instances get on referees. It's a thing that players do in sports. So to put that type of title, I thought that was unnecessary. And this is stuff we got to clean up on both sides of the aisle. By the way, as I told you guys, we're planning to open up another channel at the end of the year, where we're going to be discussing some of these issues that are taking place in society. We're just trying to figure out how we want to kind of position everything. But I think this was just unnecessary, that type of title, because it creates a false narrative. She complained to the about the referees, but she's not the first one. Head coaches have done that, black and white. So to say that, I think was ridiculous. I think he was just trying to play into some particular, play into a particular base. Look, do I have anything against conservatives? No. Do I have? No, I don't. In fact, if I thought about myself, I'll probably be, I don't know if this is a term, I'll probably be a centrist, leaning a little bit more towards the right, but I don't be like, oh, these guys are stupid over there, those guys are stupid over there. I just thought that title was ridiculous, and it's just something that I wanted to point out. Anyway. Here. So the news dropped recently, a few hours ago, that we knew this prior, that JJ Redick was going to be interviewing with the Lakers this weekend. And it got basically validated. That information got validated by them essentially saying that he did conduct the interview with the Lakers, and now they're going to be going through whatever process they go through in order to decide who they're going to hire for their head coaching position. But anyway, they did interview JJ Redick. So I heard about that this morning. So what happened? I was watching an episode of Get Up, and they were reacting to this news. And in the midst of them reacting to it, they then harkened back to some comments that Stephen A. Smith had made on ESPN. And it's funny enough, I saw it, but I don't know why I didn't react. We didn't do a show about it. I was going to do it. I don't know why. I just ultimately forgot. But what essentially happened was the following. Stephen A. Smith was discussing the potential of the Lakers hiring JJ Redick as their next head coach. And he was discussing the relationship between JJ Redick and LeBron James and them starting their podcast together while the season was ongoing. And Stephen A. Smith basically felt like what LeBron was doing was one of the most disrespectful things an NBA player could ever do to a coach, Because while you're in the middle of a season, you're going through games, you actually have a coach. For you to now be on a podcast with another guy talking X's and O's and strategy, he feels like that was undermining Darvin Ham based on all of the reports that were surrounding him in terms of the organization being fed up with him, in terms of LeBron and these guys tuning him out. He felt that was absolutely unfair to him. And when Stephen A. Smith was talking about it, he was essentially calling LeBron the most disrespectful basketball player ever, and he did not mince words. So what we would like to do now is we want to play exactly what Stephen A. Smith had to say here about LeBron James, and then we're going to come back and react to his comments. Take a listen to what Stephen A. Smith had to say there.
Stephen A., let me ask you this. How do you think the players in that locker room outside of LeBron James will respond to a first-time head coach?
Well, it depends on the coach. I think a first-time head coach like Sam Cassell, they'll respond very well. I think an experienced coach like a Mark Jackson or a Jeff Van Gundy, they'll respond very well. I think JJ is a different situation because of the situation LeBron James and his camp created by doing that podcast in the middle of the season, knowing that Darvin Ham was on the hot seat. I don't care what anybody says. That was a very egregious thing to do. I'm not talking about the podcast. Wendy knows I'm not doing this. Wendy knows I'm not doing this. I'm not talking about the podcast itself. I'm talking about the timing. The Lakers get eliminated and LeBron James and JJ do their podcast. It's no problem. This summer starts, they're doing their podcast. It's no problem. Darvin Ham was on the hot seat. And that's when LeBron James, in the middle of the season, decides to do a podcast with a brilliant cerebral basketball mind, and they're breaking down plays. They're talking plays. They're talking, am I lying, Wendy? They're talking plays. They're talking schemes. They're talking strategies. They're talking all of these things. Say what? You never seen what before, Wendy? Never seen what before?
I've never seen, I mean, this is a new thing I've never done in the NBA, what you're talking about, this podcast. Never seen anything like it.
That's right. And
Wendy,
props to them because it was Mavericks Carter. It was Mavericks Carter idea. He brought it to LeBron James, according to what my sources tell me. It wasn't LeBron James, but damn it, LeBron James is his own man. You're wearing a Lakers uniform. You are a player. You know your coach is on the hot seat, and deciding to do a podcast about games, about basketball with specifics in mind, schemes, and how you coach and how you draw plays up and what you should be doing, how you strategize, et cetera, while your coach is on a hot seat, and you knew the Lakers would more than likely be looking for a coach next season, is one of the most egregious things we have seen a basketball player do to a coach.
So you heard what Stephen A. Smith had to say. What are my thoughts on this? Well, a lot of people out there believe that Darvin Ham got a raw deal from the Lakers. Could this be taken as a form of disrespect? Yes. Now, some people could say, no, I mean, I don't see the big deal, right? What's the big deal? They're just doing a show together. I think the issue becomes what LeBron did or was doing or is doing with JJ Redick on the podcast while having Darvin Ham, but also the way LeBron was treating Darvin Ham publicly. That's where it gives Stephen A. Smith's words more weight, more gravitas. If you look at the way LeBron would openly disrespect his coach, that was problematic. Like the time he refused to call the challenge, and he basically barked on his head coach online. I had never seen a star player at the caliber of a LeBron James treat their head coach like that publicly. I had never seen, and in that moment, it made all the rumors a reality, which was LeBron has zero respect for Darvin Ham. But to call him out in such a public way was pretty damning. And it was an indictment. And also the fact that he didn't defend his coach. Right, I thought that that was a very bad look. I was stunned watching that live on TV. Like, did he just do that to his coach? So for Stephen A. Smith to say that LeBron is the most disrespectful player ever, essentially, by what he's doing, I can understand where he's coming from. There's also the issue that Stephen A. Smith has had with LeBron, which is he doesn't feel like LeBron does anything to defend his coaches. He's not the only one that said that. What's his name? Skip Bayless has said that as well. And Skip Bayless has used the example of LeBron has never stood up for a coach, where Jordan actually basically said, I'm not going to play anymore if you're not going to bring back Phil Jackson. That's how much he believed in his coach. Now, some people say, well, LeBron has never had a Phil Jackson. You're right, but he did have an Eric Spoelstra. He did have an Eric Spoelstra. And then some people will say, well, the time he had Eric Spoelstra, when he first got him, he had never won anything. He was a guy that was, a film guy. And I would respond to those people by saying, when Michael Jordan got Phil Jackson, he was an assistant head coach. He had never won anything as well. He just trusted in him. Before it was Doug Collins. And then he got Phil Jackson, but he gave him a chance. They want to. The thing about people when they criticize Jordan, well, he never had Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson never won anything before he met Jordan. Y'all are acting like MJ had 15 rings before he met. Phil Jackson had like 15 rings before he met Michael Jordan. They were both ringless. They won together. Hello? Is this on? To quote the great Rob Parker. They won the championships together. So to say that, oh, LeBron never had a Phil, what are you talking about? Jordan at the time had Phil as an assistant head coach that was promoted to the head coach, and then they won together by trusting Phil Jackson in the triangle offense with all of the precincts that the tenants that Tex Winter had put into it. So look, he had it Eric Spoelstra, and Eric Spoelstra now is regarded as one of the 3 best coaches in the entire NBA. Eric Spoelstra is. So look, Stephen A. Smith has made it his business these last few weeks now to basically call out LeBron whenever he feels he's doing something that he doesn't agree with. So as you guys know, the Lakers just recently finished interviewing JJ Redick this weekend. Going into the weekend, there were reports that he was going to meet with the Lakers, and now these reports have been confirmed that in fact he did meet with the Lakers, and now we have to wait and see what the decision is going to be about with the Lakers and JJ Redick. But prior to that, they were discussing this news on Get Up this morning on ESPN, and they were talking about it. And then Michael Greenberg went to a certain audio of Stephen A. Smith essentially criticizing LeBron James for doing this podcast with a JJ Redick, knowing that there were rumors out there that Darvin Ham was going to be fired, and he felt like what LeBron was doing was the most disrespectful thing he had ever seen a player of LeBron's caliber do to a coach. So what we want to do is we want to play what Stephen A. Smith said prior to that, because those are the comments Jay Williams was reacting to, and then we're going to come back. Take a listen to what Stephen A. Smith said originally.
Stephen A., let me ask you this. How do you think the players in that locker room outside of LeBron James will respond to a first-time head coach?
Well, it depends on the coach. I think a first-time head coach like Sam Cassell, they'll respond very well. I think an experienced coach like a Mark Jackson or Jeff Van Gundy, they'll respond very well. I think JJ is a different situation because of the situation LeBron James and his camp created by doing that podcast in the middle of the season, knowing that Darvin Ham was on a hot seat. I don't care what anybody says. That was a very egregious thing to do. I'm not talking about the podcast. Wendy knows I'm not doing this. Wendy knows I'm not doing this. I'm not talking about the podcast itself. I'm talking about the timing. The Lakers get eliminated and LeBron James and JJ do their podcast. It's no problem. This summer starts, they're doing their podcast. It's no problem. Darvin Ham was on the hot seat. And that's when LeBron James, in the middle of the season, decides to do a podcast with a brilliant cerebral basketball mind, and they're breaking down plays. They're talking plays. They're talking, am I lying, Wendy? They're talking plays. They're talking schemes. They're talking strategies. They're talking all of these things. Say what? You never seen what before, Wendy? Never seen what before?
I've never seen. This is a new thing I've never done in the NBA. What you're talking about, this podcast, never seen anything like it.
That's right.
Wendy,
and props to them because it was Mavericks Carter. It was Mavericks Carter idea. He brought it to LeBron James, according to what my sources tell me. It wasn't LeBron James. But damn it, LeBron James is his own man. You're wearing a Lakers uniform. You are a player. You know your coach is on the hot seat. And deciding to do a podcast about games, about basketball, with specifics in mind, schemes, and how you coach and how you draw plays up and what you should be doing. doing, how you strategize, et cetera, et cetera. While your coach is on a hot seat and you knew the Lakers would more than likely be looking for a coach next season is one of the most egregious things we have seen a basketball player do to a coach.
So you heard Stephen A. Smith's original comments. Fantastic. So after they played the soundbite, it came Jay Williams' turn to respond to Stephen A. Smith's comments, and he basically pushed back and said, no, look, first of all, you got this thing all wrong, right? LeBron and these guys had this were planning this for months, and it just so happened that the show was out when Darvin Ham was the coach, but it wasn't like I said they just started to plan that this year. So for those of you who didn't hear what Jay Williams had to say, I want to play exactly what he had to say in response to Stephen A. Smith, and then want to come back and continue on the show. Take a listen to Jay Williams there.
Very strong comments from Stephen A. Jay, Will, your reaction?
I just wanted to state for the record, this has been something that, Maverick Carter, LeBron James, Spring Hill, a couple of companies, mine included, we've been discussing this for 4 to 5 years. So this just didn't rear its ugly head all of a sudden when Darvin Ham was
discussing
on the hot
what
seat,
specifically?
doing a basketball show where you're discussing in-game schemes, you're discussing personnel, like trying to almost like reverse, like recalibrate the way we talk about basketball from a media perspective about the nuances of the game. So this wasn't just put in place to undermine Darvin Ham. LeBron James, when you talk basketball to him, it sounds very different when you have those barbershop conversations. And there's a reason why the podcast is doing well. There's also a reason why Redbird Capital has deployed a lot of money into Spring Hill and that they're trying to deploy it into JJ Redick's platform because they believe it can go extremely well. I don't think anybody expected JJ to be a candidate. It may have evolved into that, but that was not going into it the reason why.
So you heard what Jay Williams had to say in response to Stephen A. Smith. First of all, did I know that they were planning this? Was that this was in the works for months? No. Is that plausible? Yes. Why? Because usually to start a podcast and to start a show like this, you have to plan for it. And especially when you have people like LeBron and JJ Redick who have busy schedules, and LeBron is still an active player and I'm sure has a bunch of things on his plate when he's not playing basketball or at work. Obviously, this is something you have to map out. You have the logistics aspect of it. You also have to look at what they're going to be talking about on a week-to-week basis and coming up with a system for that. I mean, like, for example, we're looking to start a show, a second channel, rather, later this year, probably before when the NBA season kicks off. And it's going to be talking about, societal issues, politics, and all of that, maybe economics to a certain extent. And it's something that we're going to be planning for months. We're probably going to spend 4 or 5 months planning it. What we're going to talk about, the topics, what's going to be the format of the shows, how we're going to do it, the strategy around that, the thumbnails, all of this stuff. We got to sit down and plan and work out. So I can understand it, and I think there's some truth to that. The fact of the matter is this, however, whether it's disrespectful to Darvin Ham or not, LeBron and these guys don't care. Because it is clear that LeBron isn't doing things thinking of, man, is this going to hurt Darvin Ham? I don't think LeBron lives his life that way, to be quite honest with you. I think that LeBron is at the stage of his career where he's like, if I don't think you're the right guy, you're going to be gone and I'm going to go for somebody else. I also think that LeBron has reached a point with his career where he probably doesn't have as much patience as he used to before. And I think the reason he doesn't have as much patience is because of time, right? Because of the time aspect. Time has caused LeBron to, become more desperate to get for the Lakers and these guys to get things right now. So he doesn't have the time to suffer fools. Now, a lot of people disagree with the Lakers firing, Darvin Ham, but in LeBron's mind, I think he doesn't really care. I think he just came to the conclusion that, look, this is not the right guy for this job, and I think we need to go out there and get somebody else. And LeBron didn't hide his feelings on it. And I think that that's just what the reality is. In the case of Jay Williams pushing back on Stephen A. Smith, I think that what he did was important because it gave this conversation some context that I didn't know that, right? So now that he says, I'm like, oh, okay.